Hello, welcome to McBoss Capital channel. My name is Michael Chu. Today we're going to talk about the market, US stock market for the week ending June 19. But 19 was a holiday Friday for Juneteenth. For the week, we have the Nasdaq Composite weekly chart here falling through on the rebound here. And that looks pretty good here. We had a really tough week 2 weeks ago, and then we start rebounding last week, and this week we followed through, so that looks good. We're up 2.43%. Here's the Nasdaq Composite daily. You can see on Monday we had a huge jump here. So on Monday there were news from the US-Iran possible stopping the war and signing a peace deal eventually. That propels the market much higher on that day. Nasdaq was up 3%, 3.07%. So that was a huge jump from the below the near the 10-day to gap up. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday we came back down pretty hard. Wednesday we have the new chairman from Fed, Kevin Walsh, start talking for the first time, and then there's future dot plot that shows a possible rate hike later this year, which kind of pushed the market down. And so yeah, it closed very weak on Wednesday, came back down, pretty much closing the gap on the gap up from Monday. But then we had a nice bounce on Thursday, so that was welcoming. So here we go. We have a nice close to the week and still up. So I like this small pullback here, and we bounce off. So now we're setting up for a potential, rally here off the 10-day moving and 21-day moving average. On the S&P 500 weekly chart, we see very similar pattern. We also bounce back from the pulling back 2 weeks ago, and then the last week we start rebounding, and then this week we follow through with a gain of 0.93%, closing in the middle range. So again, we're seeing some bounce here. That's good. On the daily chart, we see it bounced really hard on Monday, but it started to fall on Tuesday and Wednesday. It came back all the way below the pink line and closed there. So that was the weakness. But then Thursday we bounced back, we gap up, and we closed near the top of the range, and so that's good. But we still need to, kind of clear this little trend line that's coming down from the top here. So we'll see if we can follow through again next week. The Dow Jones weekly chart here, this is the strongest index. You can see last week we bounced off near the 50-day or 10-week moving average, and then closed even higher for the week. And then this week we followed through, making new high, but we did reverse and close near the bottom of the range. But overall, it's still a positive week, 0.7%. So here we see on the daily chart also a gap up on Monday. Then we actually stayed green on Tuesday while other index were red. And Wednesday it did suffer the same drop as other index, but we're still above the green line here, right? So that's the difference here. We're still above it. And then on Thursday, while other index are recovering, this index basically didn't do too much. It still closed a little bit positive, 0.14%. It's still above the green line, the 10-day moving average. Here's the weekly chart from Russell. Russell also suffered a pullback recently, down to near its 50-day moving average. But look at this, the bounce from the red line here, and very strong last week, closing at the top. And this week, once again, it followed through and make new high, up 1.22% for the week. On the daily chart, on Monday, it did move to new high. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, pull back like other index. But look at Wednesday, we closed at the 10-day, the green line. And then on Thursday, we bounce, gap up and bounce, and close at a new high here, closing high. So that is very good. Here's the CapForce IBD 50 ETF here. Also have a nice bounce from previous week and making new high this week, up 3.92%. You can see it's in new territory right now. That's good for growth stocks. On the daily chart, you see the same gap up on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, surprisingly, it didn't come down to the green line here. It just stays above it. And then on Thursday, we have the gap up move. And not only that, it make a new high. So this is welcoming news for top 50 growth stocks here. So here's the 10-year Treasury note index here. This is not moving much this week. It stayed near the lows here, just barely above the red line. Right now it's at 4.45%. However, the US dollar did pick up a little bit here, actually quite a bit actually. So you can see that it bounced off near the 10-day here, making new recent high. However, the US oil is going the opposite here. It did rebound on Thursday from the low, but this has been a very sharp downtrend right now forming as the news about the potential US-Iran peace deal there. Here's gold. The gold did rebound on Monday. However, it found resistance near the short-term moving averages and came back down. So that is negative. Silver also looks very similar, also finding resistance at the short-term moving averages and now falling back once again. It is near the previous low now. Here's the Bitcoin also falling. It bounced on Monday, but it just couldn't climb back above those short-term moving averages, and now it's falling, getting closer to the previous low as well. So next week we have giant Micron Technology here reporting the quarter results on Wednesday. FedEx and also a spin-off FedEx Freight is also reporting earnings. We also have the S&P 500 index here. We'll be adding Marvel Technology and Flex on Monday, replacing Poole and Campbell. And we also have SpaceX will join the Russell and MSCI index on June 26th, and it will be also added to Nasdaq 100 on July 6th. So let's take a quick look at SpaceX. Last Friday, it debuted and closed slightly above its opening at 160. And then this week, we continue to see the run here on Monday and Tuesday, but then it started to fall on Wednesday and Thursday. It came down as far as 187, and the high it reaches was 200, around 225 here. So from 225 down to 172 before closing near 185 on Thursday. So very volatile IPO so far, which is expected. There's a lot of hype on this stock. Again, trading IPO is not usually what I do just because of the volatility. And here's SMH, the NX Semiconductor ETF, bouncing also from after last week's drop, which closed at a new high last week. And then this week we followed through with a 6.4% gain. Again, this is probably the strongest group of stocks right now in the market since this rally started in April. And you can see the trend line is just really strong on the red 50-day 10-week moving average there. On the daily chart, again, you can see this humongous rally. We had two pullbacks, and this last pullback was pretty significant, closing below the 21-day for the first time since this rally, the pink line there. From there, we actually bounced and make new high very fast. And then we had a pretty big pullback here after Monday's gap up on Tuesday. But look at Wednesday, we found support. We just didn't want to close below the green line. And then from there, we bounce again on Thursday, gap up, and new high on Thursday, 5.7%. We'll take a quick look at MU because it's reporting this coming week. So we see this recent pullback, but again, very similar to the semiconductor group, bouncing really strong. You see this one day here, Monday, it bounced and make new high just on one day. That is incredible. Tuesday, we pull back again. We just didn't come close to the green line. Wednesday, same thing. And then Thursday, we have the gap up move, up 8.7%, making new high. Again, we have EPS, earnings per share due very soon in a few days here. Let's look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA here has been pulling back pretty strong. It hasn't been performing like a lot of other chips that is doing well. It's been pretty terrible actually. Like it just doesn't move even on up days that are really strong. I mean, on Thursday here you can see it did move 2.9%, but we are still under the moving average, like the 10-day and 21-day. And the red line has been coming up slowly, so that's the only good thing on this chart. But with that being said, it's just not even that far away. The bounce hasn't been strong at all. This is actually, to me, considered a lot of weakness here. Here's Taiwan Semiconductor. It actually make a new high on Thursday, So that is welcoming news. So welcoming news compared to Nvidia, you can see the a really big difference in the chart. Not only it didn't drop that much on the recent pullback, I mean it did drop below 21 day, but it is very tight still on the chart. So that bounce on Thursday just highlight how strong this stock is. Again, once again making new high, up 6.94% on Thursday. Next we have Broadcom. Broadcom, I mean, it did bounce back a little bit stronger than Nvidia on Thursday because it came above 10 and 21 day since this recent pullback, and it's just sitting, at this rising 50-day red line here. So it's just sitting there. So if it comes out, that'll be good, but at least it came back above 10, 21 day. Next we have ARM Holdings. This one also bouncing back really fast. As you can see now, it is at new high on Wednesday. Yeah, on Wednesday, Tuesday we fell. Wednesday we bounced back. Then Thursday so we make new high. Here's AMD. AMD also bounced really strong on Monday. However, it did suffer a pretty big drop on Tuesday, but it's still trying to stay above the green line down here. So it still looked pretty good. And then Thursday we have a nice bounce, 4.8%. We're getting close to Monday's high there. So we'll see what happens next. And here we have Intel. Intel also making new high on Thursday here. Again, you can see the support on both Tuesday and Wednesday at the green line. That's exactly what you want to see on when the market turns down and the stock actually finds support near the short-term moving average. It did close on Thursday up 10.6%. Very powerful move. We're making new high here. It's closing at the top of the range. This is a very strong stock with a lot of support right now by the Trump government administration. Here's the software sector iShares ETF here that is not doing really well. It is down 3 weeks in a row and there's no bounce whatsoever this week. It closed at the bottom of the range, down 1.7%. Here's the daily chart. This is a very ugly looking chart. As you can see, we topped right here recently and we just continue to pull back in such a strong way. It's below the green line here, very sharp downtrend line forming. Again, there's not much of a bounce on Thursday. It's still below the red line now. So this is the scary part for this index. So software is still doing very poor. Look at Microsoft here, also making new low this week. Not a good sign. It did bounce back, but it barely closed up, only 0.1%. Here's Google, also having a hard time coming back above the 1021 day. Look, it tried to do it early this week, but again, finding resistance, that is the problem here. Again, it closed Thursday just up 1%, but it's still near the 1021 day. It has to break above it. Next, we have Amazon. This one also pulled back down, couldn't climb back above the 10-day, the green line here. Wednesday suffered a big drop, closing at a new low. And then Thursday, it did bounce back up 2.9%. Now it's just sitting at the 10-day. Again, this same thing here. We need to bounce back above both the 10 and 21 day here. Here's Meta. Meta also looking very weak here. It did bounce. It suffered a drop on Wednesday pretty big. And then Thursday it did bounce, but up 1%, 1.7%. But it's still below the green line here. So here's Palantir also suffering pretty big down week here. Trading at new low on Thursday. It barely bounced back by the end of the day, still down 1.6%. Here's Apple, also having problem trying to come back above the green and pink line here, the 1021 day. Here's Tesla. Tesla also having trouble this week. It just continued to make new low each day, and it did come close to the previous low here on Thursday morning. And again, very weak bounce. I mean, it did close up 1%, but we're still way below 10-day and 21 day right now. Here's Netflix, still in a huge downtrend move right now. This one looks like it's getting close. 76.12 was the low here on Thursday. The last previous low a few months ago was 75.01. So yeah, this has been terrible. So we'll see if it ever comes back up. So thank you for watching this video. I think overall the week is very strong from the pull back on Tuesday and Wednesday. We can recover on Thursday. We want to follow through on this momentum now. It's a good bounce on Thursday, but we need to follow through next week. Let's see how that goes. Thank you all for watching. I'll be coming out with the next video, which is the growth stock list I follow, and we'll go through many of those charts. Thank you. Please like and subscribe.